It said start video, and I did.
Who is this? Who said? Oh wait, I don't see you.
Dan, you see me now?
Where'd Eleanor go?
I'm here.
I see her.
Oh, good, 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 good. Okay.
Gloria. Everybody,
Yes, of course.
good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Think of why I'm playing the 7 wedding blessings tonight.
Well, if Danny or Gloria were here, I would say it's because their 55th wedding anniversary, but they're not. But so that's not why you're playing
This is when Jewish people
it. Oh, Gloria, I like your cat.
married. Our covenant with God. Our wedding.
What a nice cat.
Where is she here?
Okay,
I
so
love
I think we're ready to begin. What do you think, Nina?
I know that Howard just was having trouble getting on, and I resent him the link. So I know that he should be on any minute, and then I think we might be ready to go.
So the reason I played the Sheva Brachot, the 7 wedding blessings, is that Shavuot celebrates the union of God and the Jewish people, which is considered to be a wedding.
Mhm.
So you just attended a wedding, and it was a very brief interlude of a wedding, but we're not exactly dressed up, but just think, when can you attend a wedding from your own home? And these days it could happen. I know.
Yes. We, in fact, were invited to a wedding from someone's home. Nitzan's son got married, and they had it on YouTube.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's very interesting.
Yes, very
And
interesting.
he's the writer of the curriculum we're using tonight, am I right?
That's correct. Yes, that's right. So I think we still have a couple of more people to welcome, but maybe we'll get started. And as they come in, I'll just let them in.
Okay. Everyone is muted, please.
Yes.
If you can.
So I want to welcome everybody again to the Chai Mitzvah Tikkun Leil Shavuot Part 2. We're really happy that you're joining us, and we're looking forward to another great evening. You're now familiar with the Chai Mitzvah program. You know we're a nonprofit organization whose mission is to engage and build Jewish community. We do this by combining meaningful text-based conversations like we're going to have tonight in small groups, along with individual commitments to social action and personal spiritual growth. At the end of this program, if you'd like to know more about starting your own Chai Mitzvah group or joining an existing one, I'll be happy to discuss. And tonight we're going to celebrate Shavuot with some more of our text-based conversation. And at the end of our celebration, we're going to make Havdalah. We're a large group, again, but we'll break out into smaller conversation groups for some of the discussions. You're pros now, you know how to do this. So, you'll go into a session, and a minute before it's time to come back, you'll see the clock, and then you will be magically brought back into the group. And another little bit of housekeeping, we need to be mute while others are speaking. When you want to join the conversation, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. But you can unmute yourselves once you're called on, because it wasn't working so great to unmute you last night. We can stay in the Zoom meeting for a few minutes after Havdalah if you want to just talk to each other and to us once the text-based discussion is over. So with that having been said, we can get started. Hold on. Okay.
and everyone should be muted. Okay. What I'm going to do is present some information like I did last evening for those of you who were here with us last evening. And we'll be studying text because that's the custom and the tradition to do on Shavuot. And we had covered a number of different commandments or debrot last night, and we're beginning with number 5 because we worked our way down last night from 10, 9, 8, 7, and 6. So we're beginning with number 5 tonight, which is honor your parents. I'll give a little beginning introduction on that particular commandment, and then we're going to look at some sources and then have a discussion. Some will be in a large group and others will be in breakout groups and then coming back together. So this deber, this teaching, this commandment to honor your parents is on the first tablet of the 10 Commandments. Remember, there are 2. You know, if you've seen the movie with Charlton Heston, you know that there are 2. And it spells out the relationship between man and God. That's what appears on that first tablet. And as we explore this dynamic relationship, we should keep in mind that our tradition views it with great spiritual significance. And so it's placed on that tablet in that position. I'll just tell you, it is considered the bridging commandment. So it bridges tablet 1 and tablet 2 of the commandments because it is seen as honoring of parents is also honoring of God. And so that commandment is called the bridge commandment. And I'd like to share with you 2 texts which are up on your screen. And text 1, source 1 from the Talmud says, our rabbis taught 3 partners are in a person, God, his father, and his mother. When a person honors his father and mother, God says, I consider it as if I lived among them and you honored me. Source 2 from the Talmud Tractate Kiddushin, the rabbis taught, how do we respect and how do we honor? Respect is not sitting or standing in their place, not contradicting them nor proving them right. Honor is providing them with food and drink, helping them get dressed, covering them, bringing them in, and taking them out. So just take a moment yourselves just to read these at your own speed. Sometimes it's hard to concentrate when someone else is reading. And now we'll look at some text discussion based on these sources that we'd like to discuss tonight. Okay. So the Talmud is giving us examples of honor and respect. And I'd like to know what you might want to add to that list besides honor and respect. And also, we are not commanded to love our parents. That is significantly absent from this commandment. And I'm wondering why you might think that is so. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer, so feel free to raise your hand and volunteer to jump in. No one will be told their answer is not correct. So I see one hand up on my screen. I see
Lori's hand is up.
Yeah.
I think you need to unmute yourself because I'm not working with, okay, good.
I don't think you can command someone to love someone else. I think that that's just what happens from within them. And I don't think God is in us, but not in that way of determining what our feelings are. No matter what our feelings are, however, you can respect someone and you can honor them. Mm-hmm. You know, irrespective of your feelings about them, that's being a good person. And particularly to your parents, because after all, they brought you here.
Thank you, Lord. Would someone like to add or also add what might be on your list?
I say Jan would like to.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say that I guess I've reached this unique position. I guess I'm old. And so suddenly I see a shift. You know, I think sometimes I'm a little annoying because I repeat. If we have time at the end, I will share a poem that I wrote that begins, a mother really ought to send a message to her daughter. But now being of this age, which I am, and I guess she's concerned about me, I'm not sure that I like it.
Mhm. Thank you for that, Jan. I
I
know
thought that,
Sister Eleanor Francis had her hand up as well.
yeah. Oh,
You're
we
done?
need to unmute. Let me see if I can unmute you.
Maybe we can unmute her. No,
She needs to unmute
I can't do
herself.
anything.
Are you able to unmute yourself, Sister Eleanor? I'll just unmute everyone for a minute then.
Mute now.
Now you're
Okay,
good.
do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Love is, we tend to have a fuzzy idea of what love is. Love is not about feelings. So Jesus can even say, love your enemies. It's not about feelings, it's about action. So if you're treating people in a manner of respect and as a servant and so on, you may not have any feeling to go with it, but it does develop in time.
Thank you.
Gloria, did you have your hand up?
I'm sorry. I have a fly around here, so I'm trying to get rid of it. I'm sorry.
I wasn't sure. Okay.
And I can only see 5 boxes, so if anyone else has their hand up, I can't see them.
Mel and Marcia, did you have something to say?
If no one's going to speak, I'm going to throw an additional question in, which people can tag onto.
Wait.
I think Mel and Marcia.
It's hard
There
to
she
see.
is.
Yeah, I can't see the screen, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
at a loss here.
Okay. Mel and Marcia, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah. What about abusive parents?
Okay, so I need to respond to that because I teach this lesson all the time. And when I've taught this in Hebrew school, I was even asked this question by my students who were in the 7th grade and asked, well, what about, parents who are abusive? How would you respond to that? So I can tell you that we've had some very interesting discussions about respect and showing respect, but not having to feel love for somebody who is abusive to you. I mean, that just doesn't work. And so how do you deal with something like that? You can't be forced to feel that kind of affection towards somebody. And depending on what your living situation is, you can be respectful. And, that is to a degree what's called for here. So that would be my answer to you on that without going into a long discussion on it. Yeah.
Howard. Let's unmute you.
Let's see how I can see Howard.
Yeah,
Oh, there
Howard.
he is. Okay.
Yeah. In the Middle East, when they talk about the politics there all the time, they're always saying, watch what he does, not what he says, or watch what she does, not what she says. And, I think every single person has bad thoughts sometimes, or wishes someone ill, or something along those lines, at least occasionally, even the people of purest intent. So you really, I think you got to count what people do. I liked what the sister said very much, and if you have an occasional bad thought, it doesn't make you a bad person. But if you do bad things, it does.
Thank you, Howard. Any other thoughts?
Margaret.
Before we go on? Yeah.
Wondering just to respond to Marcia and apologies, your husband's name. I apologize, I don't see it here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mel. Sorry about father and mother. I'm thinking maybe it's a little bit conceptual that 3 partners in a person, God, his father and mother. I mean, that can be a lot of things. So if you're adopted, not necessarily biological. So I'm thinking that also has room for interpretation there. What people consider their father and their mother. And it could be an aunt, it could be a grandmother, it could be anybody.
Very good point. And I think something that we need to take into consideration because it's not as simple as just, biology really. And it's much broader than that. Thank you for bringing that up. Other comments? And I'm wondering also if people are thinking about what you might want to add onto the list besides honor and respect in terms of treating parents. Are there any other descriptors that we left out or that the text actually that the Talmud left out that you might want to add? And if not, we'll go on to the next text because we have a lot of ground to cover tonight. So let's go to the next text, which is text Diber number 4. And this is about sanctified time. And I'll do a little teaching, and then we'll take a look at Abraham Joshua Heschel's text piece here, which is one of my favorite texts ever. So based on the language of this Diber, of this commandment or teaching, to sanctify the Sabbath, to sanctify Shabbat, in Israel, Shabbat is called Shabbat Kodesh, the holy Shabbat, the holy Sabbath, as opposed to the weekdays, which are Yemei Chol, they're days, mundane days. And at the onset of Shabbat, it's a mitzvah to say Kiddush, as we know, special blessing over the wine, and that incorporates all of these facets into it. And, you know, this is a fulfillment of remembering the Sabbath, is to recite or to chant, if you prefer, the Kiddush on Friday evening. So we're talking about sanctified time and mundane time. And actually tonight, at the end of our gathering, we're going to end Shabbat Kodesh. We're going to end the Holy Sabbath, and we're going to move into L'chol, into the rest of the week, into mundane time, with Havdalah, which means to separate or to make a distinction in time. So our source from Abraham Joshua Heschel, from a tiny little book that's no more than 100 pages, I recommend it as something everyone should read, says, there is a realm of time where the goal is not to have, but to be, not to own, but to give, not to control, but to share, not to subdue, but to be in accord. Life goes wrong when the control of space, the acquisition of things, becomes our sole concern. I'm actually going to read that again. There is a realm of time where the goal is not to have, but to be, not to own, but to give, not to control, but to share, not to subdue, but to be in accord. Life goes wrong when the control of space, the acquisition of things, of space, becomes our sole concern. So I'd like to take a look at some of the questions here, and we're going to address these in the breakout groups, but let's just look at the questions before we scatter to the winds here. And we're asked, what is the difference between regular time and sanctified time? Is there sacred or sanctified time in your life? And that's the one I really want you to think very heavily on and to address in your groups. And what does it mean for God to rest? How does it compare with our rest? Two very, very deep questions. What is the difference between regular time and holy time? And is there sacred time in your life? Is there holy time in your life? And what does it mean for God to rest? Is that the same as when we take a rest? So I know Nina's going to break us down and put us where you will.
I will. Actually, Zoom is going to put us where we will. And it'll be about 5 minutes, and you'll get a 1-minute warning, and then we will all magically come back. Yeah, no, it's all good. Everyone should be coming back in. They got a 60-second warning.
Okay, I must have left them early by touching something. I have to apologize to them when they come back. We were having such a great discussion. It was really good.
Oh, that's really good. I'm glad. Yeah, they have their 1 minute, so
yeah,
you should be back. I'm glad. It's a very nice group. Some of the things, like Sister Eleanor, wow.
Yeah. Should we do a sharing from their groups? Do we have time, do you think, on this one?
It's 7:55, so.
Okay.
And they don't have a special spot. I feel
Hey, looks like everyone's back.
Yeah. Okay, so before we do anything, I have to apologize to my group mates because I touched something and left you like prematurely. So sorry about that, 'cause I really enjoyed the group.
All good.
So
Hello, Kenya.
Hello, the lady with the fan.
we wanted to try to do a sharing about, any things that were interesting that you came up with in your group discussion that you might want to share, just something that touched you. We can do a quick share before we move into the next debear. So if any of the groups have someone that would like to share something, now is the time to let us know.
Yes, Mel and Marcia.
We talked about how God rests and how we rest, and the fact that we rest on the same day. And it struck me. I hadn't been thinking along those lines, but we are in the image of God, and when He tells us to rest, He rests.
Or she rests.
Or she rests.
Or she rests. But that's really interesting because, if you think about it, and if you're observing Shabbat in some way and taking a rest from something or a break from something, you're doing the same thing that God is doing out in the universe, and that is a pretty awesome thought that you just shared with us, because we're not alone in that. Not only are other people doing it, but there's an umbrella over everything and everyone that's doing it as well. And so that I thank you for that personally. So Nina, I see Jan's hand up, but
I'm in a poetry group, and we were, and I'm thinking how the things I learned in my past are still with me. But this could have been from a hymn or something, but it says, God does not rest, nor does he sleep. Now, is that a hymn of some sort?
Some Yigdal, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
true.
God does not rest, or does he sleep? Yeah. So what is that?
So what does that mean? I wonder. Does that mean God is ever watchful? Because even on Shabbat, God still needs to keep like an open ear.
I hope so.
Things go wrong, and someone needs to have a little oversight, but maybe God can relax more than normal. I mean, I don't know. I'm just raising the question.
I believe in the same prayer doesn't say that God doesn't have a body.
Yeah.
God's not like a human.
Yeah.
So we have to figure that not resting is different than a human not resting.
Yeah, and what would that look like? That maybe, it's, we know God took a break from creating on that day. And so how would that carry forward? What does that look like now? So, yeah.
I feel like God might be on a sabbatical right now. Unfortunately. You think?
I think maybe God did a little bit of tzimtzum, when God like contracts and leaves space, and that space was left for us to see how we're going to step into this crisis that we're living through on
Thanks a lot.
at this point. And maybe we need to step up with a little more energy at this point. So I that would be my answer to you, that I think that there's some tzimtzum going on, that God is contracted and leaving space for us made in God's image to step up.
Maybe God needs a rest from us.
Okay. If no other comments, we'll go to our next debear and see what we can do with that, because I think we're really thinking beautifully today. It's very, very, very nice to share. So we've got name in vain, okay, which is number 3, the name in vain and respecting what is sacred. And let me do a little intro to this, and then we'll look at the source. So we're meant to seek out the positive expression in each of these commandments that we're looking at, which are prohibitions. Don't do this, don't do that. And the opposite of desecrating God's name is sanctifying God's name, causing a true and honest impression about God. And in fact, we're charged to be holy, just like God, just as we were talking about before. And in many ways, this can be seen as our mission. I mean, we do have a mission, we have a covenant, we're charged to do certain things in this world that we cannot rest from. We can't cease and desist. We may not get them all at the time we're trying, but we have a job. And so the source 1 says in the preamble to the 10 Commandments, God explains that accepting the covenant with God will mean becoming a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Now, if you'll listen carefully to my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession, Segulah, among all the peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel. This is, to me, a very awesome piece of text. This is not just a plain piece of text that is one that you nod and say, oh, that sounds really good, that's deep. But look at what we have here. So in the preamble to the Ten Commandments, God sort of sets out the understanding of what the covenant will mean. It means that if you accept this covenant, then you become a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And that's a very difficult job because you have to listen to God's covenant and listen to God's words. And as such, the consequence is that you are the treasured possession among all the peoples. And I know some people have an issue with that piece of the text. And indeed, all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Comes up twice here, so that means we have to pay extra special attention to it. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel. So let's look at the conversation question for this one. And this one we were going to do in a large group, I see. And the conversation question says, is it our role to, as a light unto the nations, an active or passive role? This call to be a light unto the nations, is this something we can sit back and it will happen? Or is this something we have to be proactive about? You know, what is the calling to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation? What does it mean? What are we really being asked to do? And what do we need to do in order to become such? So anyone that would like to jump in here?
Jan, I see
Yeah,
Jan.
well, we need to do something. If we're going to be leaders, if we're going to be just sitting back, nothing's going to happen. If we're going to take on this responsibility, it requires action.
So maybe God's telling us we need to take to the streets.
Margaret.
In a figurative way, of course.
I think it's both in a way, because we need to refrain from certain things. We wouldn't have to take action if we refrain from certain actions. So I think it's a very measured, holy thing about what do we refrain from doing to do destruction or do harm. So we don't want to do harm either by our words or by our actions. So therefore, but then if we want to take action proactively, that's a whole different thing. So honestly, I think it's a combination.
Okay.
I see Marcia, you had your hand. Oh, and Andrea, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Marcia.
I agree very much with Margaret. It has to be both. We're an active community, especially Orvalev, and we do a lot of social action. And then there are times when we just wait for things to happen. Like right now, we're doing a social action where 4 of us are going to be giving letters to nurses at Morristown Memorial, and to where I don't know what hospital. What hospital?
It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to mention it by name. It's all right.
Yes, I see Kenya wanted to say something as
Yeah.
well.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to, I agree as well with Margaret. And I think, you know, even just thinking of a light, you actively have to turn it on. You actively have to make light. Like, you know, so there's that active piece that you have to turn on, that activism. You have to be present. You have to be, but also when we think, like when I think passively, I think it is important to be a light in terms of your actions and how you interact with other people, that others see the way or see how you should have relationships with other human beings. So for me, that's the passive. By just watching the way I act and the way I interact, then others can take, a clue of the right path or the right, in your words and your actions. I don't know.
That's very interesting what you said. I just want to interject because I'm thinking we're going to light a flame in a little while when we do Havdalah. And if you look at candles, Shabbat candles, which, we did last night when we were together, and a flame is something active that acts upon the environment, right? It acts upon other things by what it does, but it's also something you can look at in a very passive way, and it can be beautiful just to look at it. It just is, while it's giving out light and heat, you can take it in and enjoy it in a different way. And I think we are, as people are saying, tasked to be both. We're tasked to really interact with the world and be very proactive. And there are times when it's time to be still. And maybe part of the wisdom that God wants us to learn is when to do each one and thereby do God's work in the world. So just wanted to throw that in, but if others would like to speak, please.
Gloria.
I was thinking in terms of our role as parents and setting the example for children by what we do and how we act and through our everyday interactions, how we speak, all of those things, how it could be active and it could also be passive because they're watching us and they're observing us and they're taking it in. And I think that that's something that's significant for us to, to convey. So it just made me think of children who are like sponges, who are there to learn. And if we don't set the example of compassion and caring and respect for other people by our words and by our deeds, then they don't really learn it. They don't learn it. So it behooves us to take that responsibility very seriously.
Thank you. So we need to not only be a light to the nations, but we need to be a light to the generations too. We have an expanded role here. And, we can sit around and think about how impossible it is, how difficult it is, or we could just do it, and see. Others that might want to share. This is a pretty interesting debair to study, this particular one.
Howard. Can you unmute Howard if he's not?
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yeah, you are.
I think the toughest word in this is holy, and what was meant by holy when this was taken down. The impression I get is that it means different or separate or special, and that if we, in a best possible world, were able to behave the way we're supposed to, that others would see this and emulate us. Now, in the real world, I think we know that doesn't always happen. But this is a difficult one because it's interesting that at the same time as being different or separate, we're trying to set an example and try to get everybody to be holy. But if everybody's holy, are we then special? Are we then separate? Are we then different? This is a very, very difficult concept for me.
And the text is problematic also. I mean, the text, because if you look at also a prayer like the Aleinu, it's a problematic text because it's set apart from all the chosen people. And that text, when the Mishkan Tefillah Reform Prayer Book was being revised, I mean, I sat in a committee where that was like, people really took sort of exception with that. They felt it was saying that we were special above all other people, and how could that be? And that it wasn't, it really didn't show that everyone was equal. And, it was looked at and discussed, well, yes, but look, there's a deep responsibility here. We were given a lot of extra work, and it wasn't just like a a happy clappy thing that you're my treasured possession. It was like, how this is how you're going to need to work with this. This is what you're going to need to do to make it happen. So it's here in this text, which is the Genesis text of it, you know, the beginning of that notion, and it comes up again later in prayers like the Elenu, where, you know, people look at it and they struggle with it. And so I'm just looking, I'm actually taking a second to pull out the Elenu because I want to make a reference to something before we go on. I think, do I have time to do that, Nina? Just for a second.
I think so.
We have an interpretive version of the Elenu in our Siddur at our congregation that just, you know, that looks at how all that has divided us will merge. And that's how the prayer opens. And then compassion will be wedded to power. And then both men and women will be gentle. And then both women and men will be strong. And then all will share equally in the earth's abundance. And, you know, then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old. And, you know, and then we'll all live in harmony with one another. So, you know, there are, for people who really had a problem with the chosenness, they have evolved other issues of the liturgy that are more comfortable, you know, more user-friendly for them. So I just wanted to throw that in. Other comments?
Oh, Margaret has something to say.
You know, it's funny, Reb Deb, thank you for saying that, because I was just thinking, this has an undercurrent to me of existentialism, of being existential, the survivability. And in order for us to do that, to be treasures of the earth has to be a treasure. We have to be a treasure of God. We have to be rowing in the same direction. It's almost like being in one of those boats where we're all rowing. And it seems like it does have that strain of being survivability. You know, we're not going to survive otherwise unless we do this.
That's
right. It
right.
kind of goes with what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that, Margaret. Others before we go forward? Anybody else?
Yes.
May I?
Yes.
I've been known to say many roads lead to Chicago. And I do believe that.
Thank you. I get it.
Okay.
Let's turn to Deber 2. I have to just get to that page, just a second. And this says, no other gods. Subheading, lies about power. So not only do we run the risk of mistakenly idolizing powers and concepts we have no control over that are greater than ourselves, but we may be prone to aggrandizing ourselves in ways that approach idolatry. And what does that mean? It's a very, very difficult concept, and it really means taking a hard look at ourselves. So this text that we're about to look at is from Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who is the founder of the Musar movement. And it's from Or Yisrael, the work. And there are matters whose truth in the absence of proof is only found through clear judgment. And in these matters, everyone prides themselves by saying, I am the one who can see. To me has been revealed hidden insight. Another dangerous piece of thought. So, everyone prides themselves by saying, I am the one who can see. To me has been revealed hidden insight. So placing oneself sort of higher than others. And the question that we're asked is, how does our increasing ability to customize our lives challenge our awareness of God? Because we have a lot of control over customizing our lives, and what does that mean? How do we have less control, although we have a lot of abilities to customize? And so this is a breakout groups one, and send us away. We'll go.
Well, now magically send you away.
Poof, you're gone.
Everyone is magically back.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
So Nina, I'm just watching the clock. I want to make sure we get to Deber number 1, which is the biggie. So we should take limited comments on this one.
Okay. So would anybody like to share what they were discussing?
It doesn't mean you can't share. Just have to be like succinct. We talked about taking up less space and knowing our place, which is very Musar related in our group. We talked about, in order to not close God out of the space and really become ourselves the centerpiece of everything, the focus, how would we learn to take up less space and less place? And we talked a little bit about learning how to work with traits like humility and patience and generosity and compassion, which are all part of, Musar study, which we actually teach at Chai Mitzvah, and we study together once a month in a Zoom room. So that helps leave space for God, and that's what we talked a little bit about in our group. So, what about other people? Did you cover anything that you might like to share about not edging God out of space? Did this question stump everybody?
Kind of. Kind of.
Hey, any thoughts, or do we sit with it and go forward, which is fine too?
Go forward.
Okay. Moving on. Okay. This is Deber number 1. And this is a very, very different statement, which is exactly what it is. I am the Lord, a call to kindness. And we are looking at the first commandment, which is not a commandment. It's a statement of fact. It's a statement of identity. It's a statement of fact. It's the premise upon which all the other commandments are built. So this is the foundational building block for the other commandments that we have. And this source that we are second, we're going to break up and look at that. But this statement is, this deber is unique because it's not in a command form. The grammar is even different. It doesn't say you shall or you shall not. It just says it is, because it's because of this that some commentators don't even count it as one of the 613 mitzvot of the Torah. Whether it is or it isn't a mitzvah, it's definitely a deber, and it's the first of the 10 commandments. So this source from Rambam Sefer HaMitzvot says, this is the mitzvah in which we have been commanded to believe in God. One should believe that there is a first cause which brings about all existence. This is the intent of the words, I am the Lord your God. So for us, this is the premise. If you don't accept this premise, you can't go further with the other commandments that are there and with the other mitzvot in the Torah. So this is sort of a sign on the dotted line piece of information so that you can go forward. And so the question is belief in God a choice? And it's a very difficult question. It looks very simple because, there's choices about everything, but is belief in God a choice for you? And I think we're doing breakouts on this. Am I right?
Yes, you are correct. It's a great question. Okay, well, I'll send you to magically discuss, and
We're going to disappear again.
This reminds me of those trees I used to draw with many kinds of fruit growing on them, exclamation point. You have taken it one step further, exclamation point. You are amazing, period.
I just want to make sure we're good for Havdalah before everyone comes back. Yeah.
We are good.
So do we, it's 8:30. Do we want to go straight to that? How do you want to do this?
Oh, well, I still want to talk about Chai Mitzvah for a second.
Yeah, okay, so why don't we go to that?
We can ask people if they are, I mean, we can go a little over if everybody's
I'm
happy.
fine. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
We're just asking if we go over a few minutes, is that a problem for anybody here? Are you able to stay on the
No,
call with us a little longer?
I'm good.
Okay,
Have a
'cause
good
we'd
day.
like to not rush
Okay.
to finish it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Because we do have a wonderful Havdalah coming up. But before we even do that, I just want to remind you that this is a typical Chai Mitzvah group discussion, and I've enjoyed it with you, and I hope you're enjoying it. And if you'd like to join some of our virtual classes, I'll send you an email with links that you can join. If you'd like to start your own, we can talk about that as well. If anybody has questions after, we can talk about it.
I'd like the links.
Sorry, say it again?
I would like the links.
Wonderful. I will send them to you right after. I'm so glad. Perfect.
Same. Make sure you can send them along. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Okay, so you can see on the screen we have Havdalah, and you're all invited to join with us.
I can't find my candle.
I'm gonna go touch my candle.
I can't find my candle.
Okay, so we have, if you don't have a candle, we do have all the accoutrements with us. Nina is in charge of lighting candle because I have a smoke detector that will go off immediately if I light this in this room.
Hopefully I don't. Okay, so we'll start with Kiddush. All rise. Okay.
Spiritually rise.
Okay,
Yes,
so you
spiritually
can
rise.
rise if you want to, although it will take you out of the screen. The custom is to rise for Havdalah if you like.
My spirit is rising.
Okay.
That's
sounds good.
perfect. That's perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen.
Amen.
Okay, now we have Bisamim.
And you've got to light your candle. Can you
Yep, and I've got to
while
light
you're
my
doing it?
candle. Here we go.
Your candle should be lit before we even did the wine blessing.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Do
We'll
over.
forgive you.
Sure.
We're conserving smoke detectors.
Right. I don't think I have one here. I'm not even sure. I was told when I was little, if I held this up high, I would get a tall husband.
Yes.
Me too. Me too.
Right?
But it didn't work.
Mine was 6'8".
Okay, so we
There we go.
blessed wine, and now we have bisamim. We have the spices. So I have my sack and my spice box, and
I have my family's spice box. It's been in the family for many years, came from Europe.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Okay.
Beautiful box.
Okay. So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei bisamim. Here.
remember that extra soul is in
Yeah.
these spices. The
We're
extra
all
soul for
sniffing.
Shabbat.
Okay.
And if you've lit a candle, you know that you're supposed to look at your fingernails in the flame so that the blessing is not lavatala. It's not empty. It's being used. We're using that light for something.
Right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei morei ha'esh.
Okay.
I would hold it closer to the computer, but I'm afraid I get more.
That would get us to the next page.
Right. There we go.
The blessing for Havdalah is on this page. Nina, do you want to do that one too, or do you want me to?
Sure, I can do it. Or you
Okay,
unless you
go
want
for
to.
it. Yes, yeah, please.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol ben or l'choshech ben yom hashvi'i l'sheshet yemei ha'maaseh. Baruch atah Adonai hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol.
Okay, we have a responsive reading at the bottom. If you can see the screen,
Do we
I'll
get the
ask you
chant?
to
No.
join me on the indented part. I'll read, and the indented parts are for the community. As we separate Shabbat from the rest of the week, may we separate ourselves from all that is not holy. May we separate
ourselves from fraud and dishonesty. Let us treat all people fairly.
May we separate ourselves from indifference to the suffering of others.
Let us work to ease their pain.
May we separate ourselves from hatred and violence.
Let us work for
Work
peace.
for peace.
The wine is sipped and the candle is extinguished in the wine.
Amen.
Amen.
Shavua Tov.
Shavua
Shavua
Tov,
Tov.
everybody. Shavua
We
Tov.
sing. No.
Shavua Tov.
And we have a final reading. The twisted candle brightens our hearts as together we watch the Sabbath depart. We smell the spices, taste the wine, as the stars in the sky begin to shine. Shavua Tov, may you have a good week. May you find the happiness you seek. Shavua Tov, may your week be fine. May it be as sweet as the Sabbath wine.
Sweet.
This concludes our teaching, but we will leave the rooms open and we can stay on and chat. And
It's the swaying when we sing.
Oh yeah, Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov,
Shavua
Shavua
Tov,
Tov,
Shavua
Shavua
Tov,
Tov,
Shavua
Shavua
Tov,
Tov,
Shavua Tov,
Shavua
Shavua
Tov.
Tov.
And we sing Eliyahu.
We can. Eliyahu,
Yahu
Hanavi,
Hanavi,
Eliyahu, Hashishbi, Eliyahu, 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 Bimhera Biyahu, Yavato Eleinu, Imashiach Ben David, Imashiach Ben David, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hashishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining
Shavua
us
Tov.
tonight.
Stay well,
Shavua Tov,
everybody.
everybody. Be well and be
Bye-bye.
safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for including.
Everybody.
Thank you
Night.
so much.
Good night. Thank you, Nina.
Thank you so much.
Don't forget to wash your
Thank
hands.
you. Nice to meet you.
Likewise, it
Nice
was
to
great to
meet you.
meet
Nice to meet
everybody.
you, Kenya.
Yes, nice to meet everyone.
Yeah, good to see you.
All the best.
This was great. Great learning. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.